Thank you for taking time to view this information regarding extended school year services. When you are done watching, you will be able to answer the following questions. What are extended school year services? What does the law require? And how is a determination made regarding these services? Extended school year services, referred to as ESY, are programs that are offered to students with an IEP during summer months. There are specific eligibility criteria that must be reviewed in order to determine a need for ESY. All ESY services are directly tied to IEP goals and are offered at no cost to parents. ESY services do not have to be one particular program. They are designed based on a student's specific need. These services are different than traditional summer school programs. While summer school, like ESY, is offered during summer months, it is typically what's called permissive summer school. Districts are not required to write this into an IEP. And generally, summer school refers to a specific class or course. While many states require IEP teams to directly address ESY services at each annual meeting, let's consider what Wisconsin law says. The district is not required to consider ESY services for each child. But if ESY services are an issue raised by any member of the IEP team, data should be readily available to review in making the determination. While there are many ways to determine if a student needs ESY, typically we'll be considering one of the following areas: regression and recoupment, self-sufficiency, and emerging skill. Let's take a closer look at each of these areas. As educators, we know that most students will regress over summer. This graph shows what may be typical of many students. Progress is noted leading up to summer, and after a long break, the student has regressed considerably. However, to consider whether or not a student requires ESY services, we must also look at the recoupment time. Looking at this next graph, you can see that the student began to recoup those skills shortly after returning to school. Generally speaking, the time of recoupment is equal to the time spent away from instruction. It is not unreasonable for a student to require 10 weeks to recoup a skill after a 10-week summer break. The second area we may consider is a student's self-sufficiency. The law defines this as the functional skills necessary for a pupil to achieve a reasonable degree of personal independence as typically identified in the annual IEP goals for a pupil requiring a functional curriculum. When considering self-sufficiency skills, teams should think about the critical nature of the skill, the pupil's age, level of development, and timeliness for teaching the skill. Examples of self-sufficiency skills include basic self-help, such as toileting, eating, feeding, or dressing, muscular control and physical mobility, and basic communication skills. Finally, teams can review a student's emerging skill when considering ESY services. Emerging skills refer to a specific skill within an instructional sequence. Let's look at an example. Antonio is a kindergarten student who is identified with an other health impairment. The reading goal in his IEP is to read or sound out consonant-vowel-consonant words. The first objective would be to identify letter-sound correlations. Once Antonio started receiving special education interventions, progress monitoring showed that in February, he was able to identify 2 out of 26 letter sounds. In March, only 4 out of 26 letter sounds, and in April, still only 5 out of 26 letter sounds. However, suddenly in May, he made a significant leap to identifying 22 out of 26 letter sounds. This is a critical skill needed to meet his IEP goal. Since summer break is approaching, the IEP team may want to consider if Antonio needs ESY services so that he does not lose this emerging skill. Further considerations. ESY services should be designed to support specific goal areas. The services provided are not meant to accelerate learning, but rather to help maintain a skill or reduce recoupment time. At this time, all teachers are being asked to find a way to monitor regression and recoupment of specific skills listed in a student's IEP. For now, collect baseline data on IEP goals prior to spring break, and again, collect data after spring break. Through progress monitoring, track the length of the time the student requires to recoup any skills that had regressed. Repeat this process over the summer months as well. There are many ways to collect the data so that it is meaningful for ESY considerations. A chart such as this one could be helpful. Ames Web Progress Monitoring may also help you determine the length of recoupment. There are many additional resources available to help when considering ESY services. Please consult with your team as well as your school psychologist if you have further questions.